and welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, September 5th, 2020. How's everybody doing?
Hey.
Good.
Hey.
Hello.
Doing very well.
Did we not freeze?
Doing great.
I'm not frozen?
No.
Everything's
No.
fine.
Yeah.
The stream
Man,
is good.
Don't jinx
Stream
it.
looks
And
good.
don't forget.
All
It's
right.
fine.
I guess we're officially open for business then.
Ooh.
You see, by my telling you it wouldn't work properly, it did.
Well, you know, I
you
did.
got to do that every week, Tony.
So some of you guys were in here in the waiting room before I started, and I booted you all out because I updated Zoom real quick because I just wanted to see that that wasn't the problem. Who knows if it was the problem or not, but yeah, at least we're here. So if the chat can give us a confirmation that the audio is good, we will get on our way. What's everybody been up to? This is our open forum first part of the show. I do actually have some ideas for what we're gonna talk about, but this first part is going to be, you guys. So Thomas, I know that I seen on Twitter that EG was posting about Drago OS. That's pretty exciting.
Yes, I had a release today. And let me tell you, the past 2 days, my brain has been dying because I got a person in my Discord server who popped up saying, yo, you got a bug in your installer, and I can't have that on release day. So I've been fighting with that for the past 2-ish days to fix it, but it's fixed. So the released ISO is working. I have reports that if you are in like Europe or other continents other than North America, your download may take upwards of a few hours. We have a UK mirror now. If you don't see the stable ISO in the UK mirror, it's a few hours behind, so be patient. It'll pop up here soon.
Well, it's always good to get them social media tweet. Have you noticed any uptick in the downloads because of it? Or do you not get that information right now?
It's kind of hard for me to get download information because the only access I have to the download server is SSH, and I haven't quite figured out how to see what my download statistics are from that point yet. But if my internet bandwidth is anything to go by, it has been a huge uptick because my internet has been slowing down.
Well, very nice. Very good. Good for you, Thomas.
That's
Colin?
excellent.
I don't know. Colin couldn't hear us earlier.
Might check testing 1 2, testing 1 2.
You're supposed to check that before we get in here, Colin.
Yeah,
It wasn't working, Rocco. I forgot to plug my mic in.
Wait, that's a perfect. Is it plugged in? I mean, really. First
is
IT
it plugged
tech
in? I
question.
So in other words, it was working, you just weren't.
Was Pebkek. Yep.
It's all good, man. You made it now.
What, a loose nut between the seat and the mic?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Tyler, what's happening?
A little less Linuxy, but I've been nerding out about coffee equipment in the last couple weeks.
I like coffee.
So I got myself a Chemex.
And
Brews a fantastic pour over.
what exactly is a Chemex?
And Chemex is a pour over coffee maker, all in one unit. And you just put the filter in, you get your coffee grounds in there, and you just pour the water over. There's more technique to it than that, but that's the simplified explanation. And I bought a new coffee grinder, which was a massive upgrade and vastly improves the taste of the brewed coffee.
So you're a buy the beans and grind it yourself type coffee guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So that pour over is a single cup?
So depends on which pour over method you're going with. You can dose it to just do like a single cup's worth, or you could make a batch to have yourself and share with other people.
Yeah, we have one that's called it's by the brand, I think it's Melita.
Yep.
And they use it's like basically it's designed for camping. So it's the same thing. You just put it on top of a coffee cup, and then you put your filter in there and your grinds, and then hot water. and it
Yeah.
brews a single cup. So that's what we use, because we used to use coffee pots, but then we would, end up throwing away, half a pot of coffee by the end of the night to set it up for the timer for the morning. This is back before I worked from home, and and then the insides of those coffee makers get so gunked up with the hard water here in Florida. It's this bad tasting stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, you got the Kalita, you've got your Chemex, you've got the V60, you've got a few different ones out there. But it's fun, and you can make some good coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my next coffee purchase, I think, is going to be one of those cold brew systems. I'm gonna think about getting a cold brew thing.
Yep. Tyler, it's not Linux, but it's probably the only subject that we'll allow here other than Linux. So coffee's good.
That's what it's. I was geeking out about it. So.
Well, we were in the waiting room or the pre-show before we got in here, and Big Pod's mentioned something. He says, "Did I ever tell you guys this?" And I don't remember him telling us this, so it didn't cross my mind. So tell us, Big Pod, what's new with you?
Well, I joined Ubuntu Mate team, so I help with automation. Currently, I am developing a way of automating package building for Mate desktops, so we get up-to-date builds for testing.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Congrats, man.
Yeah, that is
Thanks.
fantastic. I can say that it helps us over in Ubuntu by having stuff build automatically too, and you can get in there and test it, and everybody can test it. They don't have to be a developer. You can just get people to test stuff.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I love it.
It is very cool.
What about breaking stuff? Is there a job for that? Or...
Yeah, I mean, if you
Well,
want to.
Well,
I would be rich.
currently
I would
do
be
a
a
lot
rich
of
man
things.
right now, Colin, if that was the job.
Most packages I currently build automatically built, are currently broken. So yeah, need to
There you
fix
go.
it before we properly start using that.
But
Well,
see,
they call that job security.
yep. But that's all part of the testing process. Colin, you make a joke out of it that, breaking things, but that's all part of the testing process where
Absolutely, yep.
I know there was many times that I found issues and problems that nobody else had. And it sounds weird, but that's stuff that they need to know about. So, yeah, definitely.
It's like SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said, if things don't explode, we aren't testing enough.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. See, we were only in the pre-show for like 8 minutes, and I think we found out more information in that pre-show than we did all month long. Tony, you're on a new distro. It's I know it's shocking to everybody, but you're on a new distro from last week. What are you on?
I'm on Kubuntu.
And you told me that it's working well for you.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
And you also told me something else. I don't believe you. That Pop OS gave you problems. I don't think that's right.
I'm sorry, but it did for me. Maybe it's because I'm only running with built-in Intel graphics, but whenever I moved a window or something, I got like colored dots and things and graphical issues. So I'm afraid it went.
Yep.
It's GNOME. How could it not give you problems?
Hey there, Dave. Come on now.
Whoa. Shots fired. Shots fired.
Ouch.
Colin?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, look, I don't want to say, by the way, I'm running Arch, but I have been running Arch since I did that install for Esnix, and I'm looking at moving away. But the recent update for Blender just come through, and I have to say thank you to the Blender developers, because the update is absolutely awesome. So the bugs that I because I put a few bugs in, a couple of bugs, and I'm sure many other people did as well. And those bugs have been fixed. So it's awesome right now. So it's really helped with my video editing. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. I'm actually having some trouble right now with my video editor of choice. There's a few bugs that are making it crash and do some weird things. So I'm hoping they get fixed as well. So that can be very, very, very frustrating when you spend hours on a video and then it just messes up. So I get it. So Colin, is this new Blender version, is it just bug fixes, or was there any major features they added?
Well, look, I only use the video editing side, so I don't know about the Blender, as in making movies or whatever they do with it. But I'd have to assume that they've done quite a few things, because they went from 2.83, I think, to 2.85, I think, and now they're on 2.9. So what was happening with me is when you used your undo steps, if you'd done any more than like 5, it was ghosting the audio, and the audio went really strange. And that's been fixed. So that was the last thing, because even copying and pasting would just crash it. That's gone. That was gone in 2.83, I think it was. So yeah, the 2.9 is awesome. So it's good that I'm on Arch, because I've got to try that out. So at least I know that if I go on something else, I could probably grab that 2.9 from a flat pack or something like that. So at least I know it's working. So it's pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I've been sort of working on, I don't know about you, Rocco, but when I'm video editing, I try to do things to speed myself up. So I've never really been a keyboard centric person, but just to cut and slice things on either side of the strip. I've been setting keyboard shortcuts for that to speed me up. So it's amazing how when you start using keyboard shortcuts, how quicker it can make you, and efficient as well.
I can tell you, Colin, that one of the best things that I have done in video editing was start using the extra buttons on the mouse to assign keyboard shortcuts to them. And then I'm able to make a cut instantly with one push of the mouse button. So my hand
that's a good idea.
One hand is always on the keyboard, one hand's always on the mouse, and it's just bang, bang, bang together, and it works out really, really good.
That's not a bad idea as well, actually. I never thought of that.
That's cool.
Eris?
Somehow I joined Tony on his hop to Ubuntu at the same time.
And?
It's a little bit better. I tried it before, and I think I was getting more crashes with little apps. It's a little bit better. I still get like resume the wallpaper goes out. Yep. I think they fixed that on the new Qt version, but they didn't ship that for the LTS. So hopefully the next version that will fix it.
And what do you normally run, Eris?
I used to run Kubuntu. I used to run Kubuntu for a long time. I was using before this Ubuntu Mate. I got this weird error too. I don't know, maybe it's my system, but I would get like a huge syslog file, and that happened when I resumed. I tried following up on that error, and I did a different install. Tried because I got it when I resumed, so I put the computer to sleep, put it back on, never got that error. So I don't know what happened to that install. But other than that, Ubuntu Mate seems rock solid now. I don't get any of the errors that I used to get before.
I think most of the Ubuntus that came out are pretty rock solid right now. So, Chinda, go ahead.
Yeah, I was on the YouTube trying to learn something new, and I ended up on Chris Titus Tech, and he had a ZSH instead of Bash, kind of tutorial kind of thing. And there's a program called Power like 10K or something to make it pretty.
Yep.
My question is that when I went to install it, if I installed it because I was still in Bash, I tried to install in the Power 10K. The commands didn't work because they're evidently different in ZSH. And my question is if this is this great alternative, if I do switch to it and I do want to do something, am I going to have to switch back and forth to make sure that my programs are going to be able to work with stuff? You know what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yes.
You don't want to break your system? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know. Right. And then because I don't want to break my system, but I also think that ZSH looks great and fun to play with. But once again, if it's not 100% transparent, is it really that good? I mean, I'm not saying it is or isn't.
Sorry. I saw where this is going.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But so it will be transparent.
Okay.
And you basically, none of my bash reflexes got messed up by switching to ZSH, which is
Okay.
different than switching to fish. This is the primary reason I recommend ZSH over fish, is because you won't mess up like the standard like shell syntax. You won't mess up all your bash reflexes by switching shells. It adds more stuff. And behind the scenes, there's some different things. Like if you have a bunch of custom stuff in your bash RC, like with shopped and everything, there are different. The way that works in ZSH is different, but all of like the actual commands and it's all going to work the same.
In summary, it just works.
Yes, I probably just should have just said that.
Well, I have an actual, maybe not tech support related question, but we were talking about RSS readers either last show or the show before, and Feedly has a free trial right now, so I was checking them out. And I just want to know, because I'm an InnoReader user guy, what are these killer features that I should be looking for in Feedly? Like, what does it do the best? I know that sometimes I have trouble previewing the articles in Feedly itself, rather than like it'll send me to the web page, but the preview inside of Feedly is not always there. But what's the killer features I should be looking for?
Well, I think one of the things is you can kind of train it to highlight the things that you want to see or think you want to see. It takes a little work to get there, and it's based on, it runs some AI stuff in the background. So
does it go
you have
by
to use
what
it a
you
little bit.
input it or input into it, or does it go by what you read?
Some of both, I think. You can force train it, and it does recommendations and stuff based on what you read. So it's a little combination of both. I'm not sure the whole AI behind it, but it does learn, and it takes a little while to get there.
Yep.
And maybe that's a bad thing, good thing. I don't know. It knows more about you than you.
Well,
One
see,
of those things.
I find that RSS readers are almost like music player services or something like that, where there's so much time invested in just trying them out, like whatever it may be, like Spotify or Tidal, or I was trying out Qobuz for a little bit, but there's so much time you have to invest in telling it what songs you like and adding playlists and all this other stuff, and you got to do the same thing. Now, there was a service that I used to import Spotify playlists into Tidal, but it didn't, like, it imported the songs, but it didn't import them in the playlist that I had, right? So that's not always accurate when that happens. But I find that RSS readers are the same thing, where you got to invest your time in reading it and training it and filtering it and all this other stuff to get it to where you want it to go. So
Yeah, I think it's better though than just having the full fire hose effect, where it's just feeding you everything all the time. So in a way, I think it does help you, hone in on the things you want to see.
Yep. All right, so I got an email through the Biddle contact page, and it was from Primrose, and basically it says, you often discuss the issue of desktop environment choices. On the one hand, you don't want new users to be overwhelmed by how much there is that they can do, and on the other hand, you want them to realize that unlike Mac and Windows, they do have choices and control of their PC. And they're basically talking about a metaphor here, and it goes on to say, how about saying to prospective Linux users, not just use one desktop, but hey, it's like buying a house, like the HD TV shows, where you look at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 houses, however many you choose, and then you decide which one you want to live in. So shop around the Linux houses, desktops, and try them out to see which one you like to live in. And basically the point is, rather than abstract it may be a comfortable analogy. And I think I'm not so sure about the analogy part, but I do think there's other ways we can go about doing things and the way we look at things. Like there's a Linux user space episode coming up that we got to talk to. Well, I ain't even going to be able to tell you who we got to talk to, but we sat down with somebody and had a conversation, and it was so like thought-provoking. And just by the way you approach how you talk and how you act in front of people as far as how you promote Linux, it's actually been really good for me anyway to hear that kind of thought, because I'm not, I'm just used to trying to make people feel comfortable in the community and make it friendly. But there's a lot more that we can actually do to promote Linux. And there's also things we should steer away from so that we do promote it in the right way. And I think this goes along with that maybe we need to change some of our thinking of how we approach topics of what we talk about. I don't know if any of you guys have any thoughts on that or not, but I think it's something that we should be able to do. Don't all talk at once, though.
Okay.
So since nobody's talking, I'm gonna jump in real quick.
Do it.
I would like to give a perspective on that.
Go ahead.
For me, if from the experience that I have in using Linux, what I think is, you should give, as a newbie who's coming into Linux, you should give him a very, practical Linux OS that he can work his his common jobs. Once he gets well versed with the nits and gritties of the OS, he can literally change everything from the kernel to the Ds and what terminal he wants, how everything looks, feels. The point is, you should not give like 10 different alternatives. It just scares him away. Just give him a very simple thing. Make him fall in love with that. Once he feels comfortable and he understands how the thing works, how the philosophy of Linux is, how freedom manifests in Linux, then he can literally change every part of it. And in that way, we can, take out this fear that Linux is for, scientists, or it's for the educated people and those kind of stereotypes. I mean, that's the best way of bringing people in. That's my perspective.
Thomas?
So I agree. And I want to go back to that analogy really quick. They said something about equate it to like a house, right? Show them something that, like, show them a desktop environment and like equate it to a house. Like, okay, this kind of thing that you like. But you can also extrapolate that even farther and say, you may not like it perfectly. It may not be perfect, but you can renovate it like you could with the house. It's a little bit more complicated than just buying a house, but it's possible. And the way I tend to go about, trying to help people find a distro is I start out with, okay, do you want something that's like Windows? Do you want something that's at least a little bit vaguely like Mac? Or do you want something that's completely and utterly unique compared to those other two? And I work from there. If they want something Windows-based, then I go for like Cinnamon or standard KDE or Zorn OS. If they want more Mac-esque, Elementary is about the best thing I can think of. But they want, I mean, I'm sure there's something else. I know it's not a perfect analogy for Mac OS, because like I myself have actually used Mac OS now and I can see the differences. But at least it's a little bit similar. But if they want something that's more unique, then I'll probably toss them at
Ubuntu, like Ubuntu proper, or maybe Xubuntu, or maybe Fedora. And I just work from there and just think about, okay, what is this person probably going to like? How are they going to use their computer? What kind of desktop environment layout are they going to want? Kind of like how a real estate agent would be like, okay, what do you want in a house? And okay, these are the things you want. Here are some houses that try to meet those or are close to it. So like my father is very tech illiterate. He had to call me one day because he didn't know how to attach a photo to an email. And so he had a bad habit when I was little of getting viruses on the family desktop. So when he bought his own laptop, I put him on Linux so he wouldn't get a virus, because I can't be there all the time to get viruses off his computer, to fix his computer. And I knew he'd used Windows all his life, so I knew something Windows-like would be good for him. And I ended up settling on Linux Mint because I could at the time get it to look the most like the Windows he was used to, and I knew he would feel comfortable with it. And because it's Linux and not Windows, it's not going to catch all those Windows viruses. So that's what I ended up doing there. And I do the exact same thing today, just I actually talk to people more about it, because you can't throw a single distro at people usually and they just like it. It's like it's like
It's
throwing
like
a car
life.
at, yeah.
It's like
Or
life for me. Like, you won't get everything perfect in life, but you have to build upon it. That's it.
it's like a car. You may not like it when you get it, but you'll probably grow into it to some extent. And you can modify it if you want to. It's no harm done. And if you nuke it, there's another one out there exactly like it that you can go get. Granted, you risk, with a car, you risk paying a pretty penny. With your distro, you risk losing your data if you don't have a separate home directory.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. Big Pod, go right ahead.
My opinion is that when we put people onto Linux, other people, that we should do it with path of least resistance for them. So we should make it no choice, because simple reason is they won't A, care, B, that will scare them, and well, that makes our job then harder, even in their lives harder. For them, it's a computer. It's something they use, is a tool. Compared to, for example, for us, it's a part of our lives. It's part of us. So we want it to be exactly how we like it. But for most people, it is not that. It is just a tool. If they have an option, they might change a little bit so it fancies them. But otherwise, it is just like a hammer that is in the shed, waiting to be used for the specific task, and then it gets left to do something else until it's needed again.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we tend to tweak things a lot and make it ours, if you will. But at the same time, I know some people that are pretty passionate about the tool they end up using too. So, there's definitely, you have to pick the right one that's for you. Daniel, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that second week in a row, I agree with everything that Thomas said. So
Wow, I can't believe this. This is
I know
this is not
that's
happening.
2 weeks in a row. No, he made some great points. Like I was really, as he was talking about it, I was like pretty much everything I was going to say, so I won't reiterate it. But that whole analogy with the house buying, and to even carry over what Big Pod said with the tools, and that, some people do see a house as just a place to live, and other people want it to be a home and to make something of it and to make something, it's more than just a place where you lay your head, but there are those people, like I know a lot of corporate people who travel a lot, and a home is really just a place to lay their head in between business trips, right? Like, because they're single and they're so it's really the real estate analogy. The real estate agent was really good. Like, that's what we are. We're acting as that. What do they want? What are they looking for? And then we try to help tailor. The way I see it is the best thing we could do is to help tailor their initial experience to be as close to what they want as they can get it. And then as a real estate agent or a car salesman or someone would do is after the fact, after they get into them, check in on them and see as they progress. And the beauty of the computers is as long as we get them set up in the beginning so that their data is, off somewhere safe, they have the opportunity to try multiple ones. So you could give them that initial environment to look at. And then if they start to get bored, there's many different ways to play without hurting anything, right? So they can literally check out 20 or 30 different houses, right? Without moving, right? That's what VMs are all about. So like you can actually see how that analogy actually works on a bunch of different levels. So yeah, that's what I got.
Yep. All right, Jinda, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to do it again, but I'd agree with Tom because
Oh
he does
my
happy
gosh.
dances when you do that, and he gets all happy about it. But I've switched a lot of people over to Linux. I have a standard sheet that I type out that tells you that this is equal to this. Thunderbird is equal to Outlook, and what I mean, and stuff like that. But we do have to remember, in a home, a lot of people go out and buy a couch, and a lot of people go out and buy stuff, and they put things where they want. I've seen too many computers over the years where people have done nothing to them. I mean, absolutely nothing. They haven't changed the wallpaper. They haven't even deleted an icon. And so, I mean, if we're trying to sell Linux to the person, and we don't know who that person is, I think that our approach could change a little, if you guys understand what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
It has to be tailored to what they're going to use it for. You have to find a little bit of information out before you go and just recommend something. There's no one size fits all.
I mean, I know that this, like, everyone thinks Windows is the one size fits all. And I think that to say that is the biggest way to get people away from it. Windows is not the one size. It doesn't fit everyone. Linux can, because I think it's changeable enough, but oh well.
Well, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know if Linux can fit everything, because there are certain things that you can't do on Linux, like, AAA gaming and a few others, and, Adobe and all that kind of stuff. So there are things that can't be done. And if that's something that you have to have, then I wouldn't recommend that person switch. Just that simple. So, Dave, what are your thoughts?
Unfortunately, I can't agree with Thomas. I'm more in the big pod camp. I knew I liked you, Dave. I honestly don't think in terms of a distro. The closest I come because my whole family, I say Linux and their eyes glaze over and they go, huh? So when thinking about switching somebody over, I got my mom actually on Linux. The only thing I look at is what distro currently has the easiest and most stable way to update. Beyond that, I don't care about the distro. I talk to them and go, what apps do you use on a regular basis? And then whatever distro has the easy and solid updates, I go in, I set it up, and I put icons on their desktop or in a taskbar for the programs that they use on a regular basis so that they can turn it on, click, and go, because that's all they care about. So when I'm first switching somebody, I don't talk to them about different distros, different desktop environments, I just go, what programs do you use on a regular basis? Let's figure out, what they are, if they have equivalents in Linux, or if we have to find a way to get the Windows version working in Linux, and go from there, because what they do will fit in any distro, and even GNOME. You can force desktop icons so that people can just have something to double click and start their programs.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, that's all they care about.
Perfect. If someone is only using the computer to browse the internet, there's no point of giving the best distro,
Yeah. Daniel, go ahead.
So I had something that was sort of in line, I suppose, with what Dave just said, sort of. And that is when I'm like I have switched a couple of people over to Linux, and those people have had various levels of like tech savvy. And so one could not, was not, did not understand, like if it's somebody that does not understand the difference between accessing email in webmail versus accessing email in Outlook, then I am just going to pick the thing that I'm going to ask. Like Dave said, I'm going to ask them, what programs do you use? Or like, what do you use your computer for, or something like that, and then find the distro that, yes, the update thing is important, but that also looks the most like they are used to, because that kind of person might get lost if something changes too much. But then I've also helped more technical people over. And that kind of person is investigating Linux, like, because they want to customize it and everything, or because that's not the only reason, but usually that's something that they're interested in. So I will do something like that. Like, there are like, here are a couple of different ways you can have it look, and you can even change it. Like, really, just pick one and have at it. Yeah. Oh, but then also I try not to give people too many distros. Sometimes it happens anyway because they've done too much Googling. But like I've gotten, or like they'll text me like, should I install this distro that I've never heard of, or this other distro that I've never heard of? And I'm like, oh no, they just went to DistroWatch or something.
Yeah. DJ, please tell me you don't agree with Thomas.
Well, partially I do, partially I don't. I did a video on this, trying to get my head around this a while back, and so it's all about use cases. What do you use your computer for? I think where this kind of community that you have here, Rocco, can serve best. We all do something different. We all use different applications. We all know our applications very well. I think that is where new users can really gain a good foothold. Coming from Windows or coming from a Mac, you have a lot of closed source solutions, which are very specific to different tasks. If it's just a person that's browsing the web, paying their bank and the bills, that's not a really big deal for Linux to solve. But if it's someone like a musician who wants real-time MIDI, or it's somebody that's a creator that wants InDesign, or they want After Effects, those are different problems to solve. And I think that's where we can help. I don't think it's so much with the distro either. The distro matters what level of the kernel you have versus the hardware you're trying to use with it. But I don't think the distro is all that important. And I don't think initially for a user, it's a good idea to be showing them how to customize the screen when you don't even know if you've met the problems that they're trying to fix and trying to use and how they're trying to understand the system. Most people don't care about operating systems. They care about the applications they use.
Yes, exactly. They do.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah, it's about the end result, honestly. And Shickle, you got your hand up. Go right ahead.
Well, I know we're not very much about Apple here, but there's a whole kind of the phrase where Apple knows what the user wants kind of thing, and sometimes it's used sarcastically, understandably so.
Yep.
But I'm kind of sort of on the point where I believe that you probably know better what to do than they do in an environment they're not familiar with. And the reality of it is that like giving them choice probably isn't helpful. Giving them an alternative is kind of like, here's a solution that might be good for you. Giving them multiple alternatives is how you end up with a rampant distro hopper who gets nothing done for the next 5 years, because they know that anytime they're mildly unsatisfied with anything, they can just immediately switch, and then they're just never satisfied.
Well, there's a few select people. Maybe, a lot of us in this room are into trying out a distro, customizing it and doing all. Most people don't want to do that. They just want to turn their computer on and get stuff done.
Yeah, you get paralyzed with all the choices, I think. Jason, go right ahead.
Alrighty, so I'm going to touch on a little bit of stuff similar to what DJ was talking about. There's basically the community. As a lot of you guys know, I have only been in the Linux community myself less than a year. And one of the things that pulled me into wanting to use Linux more and more was things like like this and Destination Linux and other groups that people that get together and are willing to help out. So that was one of the biggest things that pulled me into Linux. But another thing I want to say when you're trying to tell people to make the switch to Linux is, or that are interested in making a switch to Linux, is that it doesn't have to be just Linux. I think that sometimes you find that in the community, not this community, but on the different forums and things like that. Is that if you're not a Linux only type person, that there's some negativity there towards whatever else you may use. And I feel that to give them the options to learn Linux, to play around on Linux is great, but reiterate to them that it doesn't, if they have certain applications they want to use, like that are on Windows only or Mac only or whatever the case may be, that it's important to also reiterate to them that Linux doesn't have to be the only thing they use. They can use whatever fits their needs, and don't be that person, so to speak, that says Linux has to be all you use. I found that in a lot of communities when I was first, looking around into Linux myself, and I was just primarily doing the Linux thing just because I wanted to learn. I'm a techie and I love technology, so I wanted to, to get into this community and into Linux rather, and for that sole purpose, not necessarily to make it my daily driver or anything like that at the time. But using it for almost a year, I've like other people are saying, it became a distro hopper. Mostly because initially because I of this group, we're doing those little distro challenges and stuff. I have my main machine and I have my machines I use to test out other things. But so initially, yes, it'd be great to just to point them to one thing that meets their needs as far as Linux goes, and let them encourage them to look things up like on YouTube and to learn about what it is that what distro may meet the needs that they're looking for, and also help them and guide them yourself.
Yep. All good suggestions. Stephen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I believe Daniel Stevenson alluded to this, but like for me, I put my brother and my sister both on Linux, and my sister's not very tech savvy, and so I loaded Mint for her, and she loves it. She never has a problem with it. I've never actually had a tech question from her. but she has a very basic use case with doing web browsing and that sort of thing. And my brother is more of a techie type person and more of a tinkerer. And I started out by showing him a bunch of different desktop environments. What looks nice to you? What would you like to play with? And that worked out well for him. He actually ended up on mainline Ubuntu, but that was after trying Ubuntu Mate and Xubuntu and some other things. And so I think it's kind of, like I said, just depends on the person, and partially their technical level and their ability to and their interest in comprehending the options that are available and wanting to take advantage of them.
Yep.
There are people with their hands up.
Colin, go ahead.
Well, I think I've mentioned before on in these chats, Rocco, with my experience with some of the people I work with, and they know I'm into Linux. They got a bit fed up with Windows. They're not tech savvy at all. And I agree with a lot of different points here, but I always go with the tried and true. I know I've used Linux Mint over the years. I know it's never an issue. It has a familiar desktop environment. So always go with the Ubuntu base for sure. If it's a lower spec laptop, I'll go with Peppermint. Same familiarity as Windows 10. It works in a very similar way.
Or you can go with Linux Lite also.
Yeah, you could do that as well. But I like to stick with with mainly two. One with enough power. If it has enough power, it's Linux Mint Cinnamon. And if it's a low spec laptop, I'd definitely go with Peppermint. The reason for that is because they both have the update shield, the same update shield. It's either green or it's a blue shield. Click it, update, done deal. And I've got people still running Linux Cinnamon today, haven't changed the desktop. All they wanted to do was their emails. And mind you, one person didn't even know how to do emails, right? His partner was logging in on the internet to do emailing, but now he just uses Thunderbird, opens it, there's his email. So he knows how to do emails now, right? So, I mean, it's the applications mainly that they need to use. As long as they can do a search on the internet, they can use YouTube, they can do email, the very basic things, and it's the applications that we talk about mainly, but it's also got to be on something that is definitely not going to let you down, basically. And normally it's an Ubuntu base that I would go with, from my opinion anyway, but you've got to know what that person wants to do and what sort of device they have, really, at the end of the day. So that's how I approach it.
So a lot of it's about what they're trying to get done. So the applications are critical.
Yeah, and the device itself, whether it's an underpowered device or it's got enough power for Linux Mint Cinnamon. But I have installed, I don't know how many times, Linux Mint Cinnamon. Nobody's ever come back to me, and they just use it. So, and I know I've used it, and I know that I can recommend it because they themselves don't know nothing about Manjaro base, Fedora base, and whatever base. They don't know. And like it's been mentioned here, they don't care. They just want to use the applications and get the job done.
They don't need to know that other stuff, Colin.
No.
They don't need to know, Rocco. They just, as long as I know and I'm confident in what I recommend and put on their computer, and I know it's not going to let them down and it's going to work and they can get their stuff done, then, that's pretty much worked for me in the past anyway. So, yeah.
Keep the wool over their eyes. Tyler, please tell me you're here to advertise for me.
So, yeah, I was just going to call you out, Schickle. We're talking all about these basic users. They do, web browsing. They're checking webmail. They're checking their bank over the web. Schickle has a new favorite Linux-based operating system that's perfect for these use cases because they
Tyler,
mostly
what would
need
that
access
be?
to a web browser. Well, there's that Neverware Cloud Ready. That's the installable version. And then beyond that, there's just Chromebooks. And most likely these people's emails are going to be Gmail. So, like I said, I'm just calling Schickle out. He's not, advertising for his new favorite operating system.
Can't believe I missed my shot on that. Daniel, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, one thing that people have talked about, oh yeah, like familiar desktop, Linux Mint, and yes, that's great for a certain demographic. This is just, a comment, and that is, if most of what you have used is Windows, then that's awesome. That's great. I think that Mint is probably the best choice. Kubuntu can also work, but then like you have the fiddly plasma bits to deal with. But I found that actually Pop! OS has been really great with younger people, my siblings, 3 of them, or just GNOME in general. Like they've like a lot of how they've used electronics as phones and tablets, and they haven't, like they'd all been using Windows, but it hadn't been drilled into them for multiple decades that this is how a computer is laid out. So the GNOME workflow actually made a lot of sense to all of them, and honestly to me too.
Daniel, you make a point that I have tried to make before, where GNOME gets a bad rap in the Linux community because it's different from the normal Linux distribution. It's not the same paradigm, it's different. And of course it gets bad rap for other things like features and everything, but that's not the point. The point is, I think people who are not committed to one set of workflows, where I use a Windows PC and that's what I use, those type of people will not find GNOME compatible with them. But for people that are maybe used to tablets, like you said, or are open to just learning how to do something new, like when you get a new, or I don't know, when I used to pick up a new phone, like a new Samsung phone, I would not go and change everything around and put everything back. I was learning how to use the Samsung phone the way they wanted me to use. Now, ultimately, I decided on which one I wanted to go with and, maybe change this or that. But the idea was to learn it how it was supposed to be used, or how it was intended to be used. And I think GNOME is the same way, where it's relatable to a lot of different people, just maybe not in the Linux world.
I really quickly just want to tack on to that it also helps if they're younger, because
Yes.
a 5-year-old is going to be able to learn and get really used to like a GNOME desktop and be able to be a lot better at it than like a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old who's used Windows all their life is.
Yep. Thomas, why am I agreeing with you?
Whoa. Blame it on all the programming I've been doing. It's been making me agreeable for once.
Oh my
I
gosh.
see. Oh wow, that's amazing. I think you're right. I think you have to go into it with an open mindset, or else, you're not going to come out of it.
Well, Dan, you don't have to go in with an open mindset. If you don't like GNOME, that's fine. If you're used to something else, that's okay, because there's plenty of ones out there that are like that. But I think, you'll find,
because it's different, you can't go into it with a closed mind.
Right.
I think it's my point. You can't just say that, oh well, that's totally different, I'm out.
Yep.
Yeah, you
I'm
have
an
to have
XFC fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine. But like, you have to, if you're going to try it and really give it a fair shake, you have to think, okay, I can do this. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's, at least you've tried. Abdallah, go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. Well, I have 3 stories that happened to me this week. Well, the first one is when I was going to a store where they sold used laptops. I met some of my friends, and they wanted to buy a laptop. On that shop, most of half of the shop had Linux distros, and
Really?
yeah, I mean, because I don't know why, but he hated so much. I told him, why you don't like it. He said, okay, because it's look at the computer, and it seems that they have all distros. I mean, like Mint, it was 30. I mean, when I wrote on the terminal which OS release it was written Mint, if I remember, 13. So he told me that I mean, before we get the right computer, but the first computer that he got, it was a Linux Ubuntu. He don't like it because he isn't used to. He said, I prefer Windows. It's easy. It's simple for me. I don't want to touch it. I mean, I don't want this laptop. So fortunately, on that store there was a ThinkPad. I mean, ThinkPad are well known to be good laptops, and it did have a Linux Mint. When he tried it, he liked it too much because it was very familiar. It looks like a Windows 7. I mean, most of people will agree with me on that. I mean, and he take it at the end. I mean, the process took an hour. I mean, the store was too big, and it did have a lot of, I mean, half of the store did have a I mean, Linux distros based computers. Yeah. So I was surprised that he liked the Linux Mint. I'm not surprised. I mean, most of people like it, but now I will go to the second story, which of my wife, of course, which hate Linux because I did expose at first glance to Manjaro. I mean, it did crash so much that she don't trust any product of Linux. So.
Well, let me ask you, why would you give her Manjaro? Like, what would...
I mean, it was a mistake for me. I thought it looked fancy and...
right.
But yeah, it was a mistake for me. So I did repulse her from Linux, unfortunately. But I mean, this week I'm proud that I converted one guy that didn't like Linux to Linux. Even though it was a Linux Mint 13, then later I download a Linux 20 Juliana. Even though, anyway, I don't want to get into more details with Juliana, but it was familiar for him. So, yeah. And the third story of my sister-in-law, I mean, she liked Linux, but some games she couldn't play all the games that she wants. I mean, you could play Minecraft, but you could not play Roblox. I mean, he always thinks that you could play in Roblox. I mean, I don't know if you know this game, is to play the studio of it, but not the server and the game online. I mean, even if you use wine, you will be banned. I mean,
right.
You will so, yeah.
Yeah, good points. Dave, go right ahead.
Rocco, as much as I rag on GNOME a lot, I agree with you that it's perfectly good. It works. The one area I would differ is when I go into GNOME, I don't go in with the thought I'm going to learn to use GNOME. I go into it, how do I do what I normally do in GNOME? It's not trying to learn the environment itself. It's trying to learn how to get where I need to be.
Better word choice. Better word choice there, Dave.
It's just a slightly different perspective, but kind of like, everybody knows I run Arch, except for this year because I've been in Kubuntu since 2004 came out.
But you don't need to know how the distro works or how the DE works. You just need to know how to get around and do your thing.
Right. And it, learning into GNOME, if you go into GNOME trying to learn GNOME, a lot of times that can be overwhelming because how to get the obscure stuff done can lead you down a lot of rabbit holes. But if you're going in just, this is what I need to do, how do I get to that? Then GNOME works great, especially if you like using the keyboard to run your operating system.
Yep, I agree. Paris.
I agree with pretty much everything everybody said. But I do remember a video that DistroShoot made, and he talked about how Arch is the best distro for a beginner. And I think that's actually true for a specific kind of user.
No.
I know that some people use their computer.
Wait.
I actually
Stand by.
know one
Hold
person
on.
that is exactly that user.
Okay.
I know some people use their computer and they like changing everything. They don't leave anything, and it barely looks like Windows. And I think if you put that user in as a Arch user, they could probably do good. But I think most people don't do that. It's not normal to change your operating system at all. It's not normal to format your system. Usually people use the computer and they never do anything with it. Like people have said, they never change the wallpaper. And I think for most people, you would want to put them on something of what LTS, and I think it's very important. I think Adam showed that when he did his experiment. You want to work with people and help them out, like get them going, because I know he did it for the experiment, but I would never just leave people to themselves and let them figure out everything. That's never going to work. You got to work with them. You got to make sure that they understand what's going on. And yeah, I would put them probably like in Ubuntu Monte, maybe Mint, and work from there. And then if they want to try something like a rolling release, then they can do it later, I guess. But I wouldn't put them there because it's a lot to get going. It's a different, if it's a different DE, it's a different system, different packages, different software at the beginning. But I think, yeah, I think even Arch would be a possibility, but not very common.
I'd like to qualify what Eris said about Arch being good for a certain kind of beginner. And I'd have to say that Arch should never be anyone's first exposure to Linux, like
because
installing Arch. But
that's true. You should go with Gentoo.
Yeah. Okay. No. But I know
agree.
actually. I said I know multiple people that Arch was the first Linux they installed, or they else like installed it like basically a week or two after they switched to Linux, because they'd been like sort of dipping their toes into the community, and like watching videos and listening to podcasts and everything, and they already knew something about Linux, and in addition to that, they had a certain mindset that, like Eris said, they want everything exactly that way. Like there is these people that I'm referring to are just plainly kind of weird. I love them, but they are. You have to have a certain mindset to want to do that.
Well, I don't know if I would ever give a person that's never run Linux Arch. I just don't think that I would do that. I mean, I respect your decision, Aris, to maybe have somebody, maybe one or two people that you know that it would suit them, but I don't think there's a person that I've ever met that I would hand them an Arch distribution the first time they ever touched Linux. Once they got used to Linux, yeah, you can ease them into something else, but no. Anthony, welcome to Biddle.
Thank you. Yeah, once he mentioned the idea of even giving Arch to a beginner, I pretty much almost fainted, because here it is. I've been using Linux for almost 10 years, and I've done the whole, trying to install Arch Linux by means of the manual, and it just wasn't working for me. I tried several times, and I already know what people are going to say in rebuttal to that, but it's not something that you want to have to do when you first get started with Linux. And I'm glad that I had Ubuntu 9.10 to get started on, because I was having problems just having codecs, for my sound and whatnot. I can only imagine if I had to build the doggone thing from scratch. And so don't see your
It'll just scare the hell out of it.
With Arch Linux as their first operating system. Some people never want to use Arch Linux, and I think I'm probably one of those people.
The only comment I have to that is that the Arch manual is actually, like they say, all you need is the handbook. It's not good. It's really not that good. There's some of the other minimal distributions that have better ones, but they're also just harder to use.
Daniel, you're opening up a whole nother can of worms with the Arch Wiki.
if you don't mind digging down rabbit holes and
I wish they had an
going
actual
through
handbook.
serpentine tracks to find the information, it's not like Google. You can't just put in a keyword and everything you need comes up. You literally have to track down through a lot of different rabbit holes and go exploring to find what you need.
The Gen 2 handbook is much easier to follow than the Arch handbook. And I installed Gen 2 first, so.
Well, I'd like to I think this is an interesting topic, to be honest, because look, I've been on Arch now for 3 months. There's a lot of, there are a lot, by the way, but there's a lot of distros out there now that accommodate an easy way of installing Arch. Now, the only thing I can see the advantage of that is that you never have to install an operating system again for the user, number one. It sort of hasn't worked for me in a way because I've had it's hindered my productivity in editing videos. But that's the only thing. It's never not booted. It's always booted. It's always at the updated packages. If you're just,
just wait, Colin.
Email,
just wait.
if you're just emailing and just searching internet and stuff like that, then maybe it's possible that as long as it always boots, there is an opportunity there for people. They maybe do need to know a little bit about Linux. That's the only thing, but
they have to.
I can see the advantage there, not having to go back and reinstall every 3 to 5 years. That's the only advantage I can see. But there are a lot of distros accommodating that now, I must say.
Well, even with Ubuntu's, you can upgrade, so you wouldn't necessarily have to reinstall an operating system every couple of years. I mean, you could theoretically upgrade each one. I just think that there are certain users out there who may be, power window users who are, familiar with command line and all that other stuff that may find their way and maybe have an interest in learning about Linux. And, maybe that one person that I've never met would be okay with giving Arch, first off the bat. But I just don't think that would be a good thing in pretty much any other scenario.
Yeah, I just find it interesting, though, to be honest. There seems to be a lot of, I don't know, Arch seems to be coming up a lot lately, and there seems to be quite a few people running Arch lately as well. So it is. I just find it interesting that it can be advantageous in some areas, but yeah, if it does go wrong, then that person is going to need some help, aren't they? That's the only.
Well, like I've always said about Arch, it's not even so much installing it. It's about being able to maintain it. You have to be comfortable maintaining it. You can't just say, well, I'm going to install it. I've installed Arch 3 times from scratch, but I don't want to have to maintain it. Like, I don't want to go, I'm fine for a week or two, and then all of a sudden something happens, and now I have to go take time out of what I'm actually doing, maybe editing a podcast or a video or whatever, and then go find out what my problem is so I can continue doing the work I want to do.
Especially since the system tools they give you are so minimal. Pacman is the dumbest package manager, as in like it's just not good at solving dependencies for Linux.
Well, I don't even want to go into like this one's bad or this one's good or whatever. I just think as a whole, I don't want to spend that time learning how to fix things.
It makes up for it. I don't want to start a war. It makes up for it in speed. It's just you have to understand that there's a trade-off.
I'm going to say one thing, though. Most Linux users or anybody that wants to potentially become a Linux user, they want their stuff to work. They don't want to have to, like everybody was saying, they don't want to have to, dig deep to find an answer and how to just do a simple install. They want it to install, they want it to work, and they want it to do everything they need as quickly as possible. Now you get those people that are like techies and enjoy digging deep into those type of things like Arch Linux and things of that nature. and want to learn and do it themselves, and break things and fix it and all that kind of stuff. But those are the real serious tech type people. Most people that are considering to come to Linux instead of like Windows or Mac are just like everyday users. They're going to be people that just need email, web browsing, and things of that, and they just want it to work.
I would like to share a story in that regard. In my neighborhood, I had 3 elderly people who were just office workers, and they had this issue that their Windows computers used to get infected every 3 months with viruses because they used to see these movies and all that, so it just used to get infected. So what I suggested them was you either use a Mint or Linux Lite or Peppermint. Then when I saw their systems, it was low powered, so I just suggested them to use Linux Lite, and I just made them install it, and it was working fine. But the trouble starts here. They were using MS Office, and they used to have all these documents and Excel files and everything. But now when they're opening their Excel and Word files and everything in LibreOffice, the format is haywire, totally. So they're like, okay, you said that this OS is doing good, but the problem is our documents doesn't look the way it looks previously. That's one problem. So this has also to be fixed. And I also thought that, why not make them install Manjaro? But then when I remembered my experience with it, because every 6 months it had some kernel issues and it used to crash, and I literally had to sit and search what is the problem and where is going wrong. Because I won't be staying here forever, and once the update period is over for Ubuntu based systems, someone has to make them reinstall. They are not going to do it, I know them. So that's the problem. I don't know when this LibreOffice and MS Office war will end so that the Word documents and all those kind of things look alike. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's the best and the worst thing that scares people away from Linux more than using
Applications are a huge part of what we do.
More than using terminal, they're scared that their documents will open the way it used to open. That's the problem. And it's a very
yes. Hello.
And it's a very heavy part explaining them that no, it's gonna be fine. You can do everything. It just looks a little weird. You just come to know, but it's.
All right. Well, Eris, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I did want to stress that I said for a particular person, like not most people are going to use Arch. And the thing about Arch is you get to experience Linux in a way you would never experience Mac OS, Windows, any other system. You get to experience up-to-date apps. They're constantly being updated. You get to get the biggest repository with the AUR. No other distro offers that. It's a very unique experience, but like I stress, it's not going to be for everybody. And I think I've heard a lot of people say once they've tried Arch and they've actually learned how to use Arch, they've never hopped again, and they've stayed on Arch for the longest time.
Yay, we're talking about Arch.
Oh yeah.
And there's Computer Kid. We talk about Arch, and there he is.
No, we're talking about Gentoo.
You summoned me.
If I could just creep in a bit here, Rocco, just talking on what Shamim was talking about, just to add on to that, it's very important that you know what the people are doing currently before you give them Linux, because it's quite easy to forget the applications they are using, and then you install Linux, and then it's this huge headache about, oh, but I've got Microsoft Office programs, I've got this and I've got that, and I use this particular application that's only done on Windows. So it's important that you ask those questions before you even move people over to Linux, because you want to make sure they're not. Well, first of all, are they a gamer? Pretty much, you don't want that headache. And are you using any Windows specific applications?
Yeah.
You need to know those things. That's important, I believe.
I think you make a very good point there, because consideration of the user is something I think a lot of times we forget. We get so excited about Linux in general. Oh, I want them to use Linux. I think it'll be better. But we got to think about what they want. And if they're not a technical user, then it's going to make things a lot more complicated. Should they even if you put Linux on their machine, it makes life more complicated for them. And the next thing you know, they're complaining like, oh my God, get this mess off my computer. I just want Windows. But when you take on a better approach of gradually introducing them to open source software, hey, I think I like this program. I mean, I have a guy that's been using Mac stuff, Apple stuff for decades. And yet when I introduced him to LibreOffice, he fell in love with it and still uses it to this day without me being around him at all. And so by being mindful of people, we're able to get a lot more accomplished. And it shouldn't just be we're trying to shove a particular distro down somebody's throat. You got to consider people.
We
That's
definitely
an
would
important
know
point.
anything about complications in this group. Complicated
And
stuff
it's
is totally not what we do.
It's an important point, because we tend to get excited because somebody wants to move to Linux. I've been there, and I have installed something for somebody, and I didn't even think that they're using this specific application, and maybe I'll have to put Windows back on there, which I think I've done before. But it's a huge consideration what they use. Number one.
I have to agree. And actually, I came at it the opposite direction, because a lot of the stuff I use in Linux, I found you can actually install on Windows. And I do keep a disk of Windows for gaming. But for email, I use Thunderbird. For the web, I use Firefox. And you can use that. I'm not sure about Mac OS, but Linux and Windows, they work just fine. So that's usually what I start people, start the transition with. I get them using email clients and web browsers that have alternatives on their phone, for one, on tablets if they have them, and things that work in Linux, so that when I eventually, if I ever get to move them over, they won't have to learn new programs. They've already been using the stuff that I'm going to put on Linux for them.
Yep, that's a good idea. Abdallah?
Yes, I want to ask a question to Shamin. He says that when he install a distro, that Linux Lite, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's used LibreOffice, right?
Yeah, it ships with LibreOffice.
Yeah, because I did have this kind of issue with my grandmother, but I did solve it by I know there's an option in LibreOffice where you make the files by default will be either docs or any kind of files that you would like. Because she make a report and send it to the mayor about the state of the house. And we live in a common in a complex of apartment, and she had to write reports, and so she writes it on docs. By default. It's as she rated in LibreOffice, it gave the same results when she got the same file on Windows. This option is available, if I'm not wrong. As I did, and it does work in also in Excel. So you just have to install LibreOffice and fix the issue.
Oh, thank you. I'll do that.
Okay.
I think.
Yep.
Yes.
Anthony.
Go ahead.
Anthony, do you have anything else? You still got your hand up.
Oh, I don't. Not right now. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Also, I
Go
want
ahead,
to
Ed.
add something.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Anthony says that we are excited. I mean, I do agree. I mean, the story with my wife is the best example of that. I mean, I was excited. Linux Manjaro looks very fancy. I mean, I like it, and said she will like fancy stuff, but I didn't take into consideration that it will crash. I mean, when we tried to install Minecraft, it did crash literally. So because of that, I successfully convert an old woman. I mean, old people, it's hard to convert. I mean, compared to young people. But I've miserably failed to convert my wife, which is younger. But I succeeded in converting her, the grandmother, into Linux. So yeah, because I took into consideration her needs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Daniel, go right ahead.
So I have three things. The first one is what Dave said about open source or like Linux software on Windows. That's awesome. I think that's one of the great things about open source software is that you can port it pretty much anywhere. So like just today, my brother texted me, "Hey, what's some good audio editing software for Windows?" Because he now has a Windows laptop because got a new computer and he's like, "I already have Windows. Why am I just gonna go install the OS?" He was using Linux because it was free. Anyway, but so I just went, I'm like, I don't know about Windows, but I know Audacity is good on Linux. So I said, Audacity. And he was like, great. He's trying it. And you know, pretty much like I won't say everything, but most of the stuff that you can get on Linux, there's also a Windows version. Number two was on the whole LibreOffice, Microsoft Office war. I have an interesting story about that. My granddad has recently switched to Linux, and he is very he's actually quite technical, very capable. He installed it all himself. I thought I was going to have to like be on a call or something or do it for him. No, he did it all himself on a second hard drive. And he already used Open Office for spreadsheets and everything, so that was easy. But he was a WordPerfect user, one of like the last 5 or however many. And so I know nothing about WordPerfect. I knew that it was a little different, but there was one function that that WordPerfect, like it had something for like automatically creating envelopes for letters, I think. And that's not something that's built into like a Word or a Word clone like a LibreOffice Writer. And so I didn't know what to do. Thankfully, he's figured out how to do it in LibreOffice somehow. He applied Google and trial and error and now has many pieces of paper he can use for scrap, I suppose. But yeah, it was an interesting.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in on this topic? Well, Dave, do it. Do it, Dave. You're muted, sir. You have to unmute if you want to jump in, dude. I'm sorry.
Oh my jeez! I thought I did it. Oh boy! You can tell I'm rusty. I haven't been here for a couple of weeks.
I know where you been, dude.
I don't know where the mute button is. I have to agree with Dave. I personally, I actually try not to convince people to install Linux on their computers because it's gonna it almost always it never fails that there's some little difference that they think it's going to be an exact copy of Windows. It's going to look the same, it's going to act the same, and it never does. There's always some little difference, and then they want to go back. Seems like it. But what I will do is I'll encourage them to try the different software on it. And once they get used to using LibreOffice or Firefox, Audacity, if they're doing audio editing, things like that, and they get comfortable with that, and they'll really appreciate the fact that not only is it a lot of times more secure, it's free, it's open source. And then after a while, when they listen to me, because I'll talk about Linux with them, but I'll be like, you know, you got to be really ready for the change and know that it's not going to be identical. There's going to be differences, and if they insist, then I'll help them change.
I think that's a theme that you're going to hear over and over again, and that is about the apps, about the applications, because that's where the real stuff is. That's where people get things done. That's why they use a computer. They don't use a computer just to toy around with it, just to change it around and customize it. Sometimes we do, but I mean, most general people use the apps to do stuff. Computer Kid, go ahead.
So I just wanted to chip in on what I thought. I was talking about this in the chat about what I thought for getting different kids into Linux. So this is a very, very pessimistic idea, but I would say that for most kids out there, Linux is not really a great idea because a computer isn't really like it unless they are someone who is already interested in computers, like a gamer or a tinkerer or a programmer or someone like that. A computer would usually be something that the school or your parents give you to type your papers out on. And then your primary computer device would be a phone or maybe a tablet, depends on the person. But and even that, they're not going to go doing stuff like Linux because that's a walled garden, and that's the way they expect it to be, and that's the way they use it. So like, it's just, for most kids, especially around my age, it's just not really a thing. I would assume that changes the older you get, the closer you get to like college age and then working age and all that. But at least for most kids, I would think that Linux just isn't a thing you can convert them to because they're not on Windows or Mac.
Actually, you can. You just need to change your perspective and remind them that Android is basically built on Linux.
Sure.
That's the same as giving up.
Yeah, I'm talking about desktop Linux as we use it.
Yeah. And I think that might honestly be the most important takeaway, is that like perhaps maybe it isn't our responsibility to be converting people or to be trying to dictate what they should use. Perhaps it's not. It feels good. It's like, hey, you're using what I'm using. But perhaps that's just a symptom of our passion and our tribalism, depending on which way you lean, rather than an actual necessity.
But maybe it is a good idea to like have people know what it's like. So once they get to the point that they are onboarding to an operating system, maybe Linux is something in their mind rather than just Mac and Windows. They know there is an option, even if they're not going to take it for the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying with different, the different operating systems out there is, don't push somebody to a certain operating system because it's something that you use. You can show them, what it's about and how it's used and things of that nature, but still remain open-minded and, encourage them to use what works for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, we must convert.
No, but that's how
give
some
them
people.
computers. We'll force them to use computers just so that they can use Linux.
That's how some people approach it, though.
Yeah.
They approach it like you got to start using Linux, and if you're not using Linux, you're doing computers wrong. Like,
But at the same, you can't be doing computers wrong if you don't do computers. At the same time, I think there definitely is merit to teaching the normal person or kid how to use a computer fluently on Linux or Windows or whatever. And then, like I said, they should also have exposure to Linux so that in the future,
but I think
maybe it's an option in their mind.
I think you're talking about two different things, Computer Kid. I think you're talking about teaching kids and young people about computers and about Linux, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm okay with that. I'm more talking about people who are already set in, I use a computer to browse the web type thing, and now we must convert them to Linux.
Then you're not looking at kids in the first place.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or go ahead. Oh, okay. But so on the one thing on the gamer tech, gamers are not always technical. This surprised me a while ago.
This does not surprise me.
No, well, okay, but
Gamers fire up a
when
console and away they go. Yeah.
I got into gaming because I thought computers were cool. It wasn't because like I know now that like most like 90% of middle school boys, and I don't know that I couldn't give you a percentage for girls, eventually want to play games on their computer, and at some point probably want to become a programmer because they want to write video games. And for me it was the other way around. And I didn't realize this until like a couple of years ago, where I think I was trying to explain what I thought was a very basic concept to one of my friends, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And then it came upon me like, oh, just because you use a computer all the time and you play all these games does not mean you know what the start menu is necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I honestly
I
wouldn't have
found that to
guessed
be
that.
true with IT people as well. I worked in the IT industry, and I've had to troubleshoot people that work with within the even my IT group when I was working for the Bank of America's IT department, and we were actually in the physical location before the whole COVID thing goes. I was surprised at how many people try to get into the IT world but don't know the first thing about a computer.
That's
And
insane.
Yeah,
it was
but
nuts.
it's
Yeah, it's
true.
happened.
I was at a gaming event. I was actually helping out there, being a IT guy, so I have gamers and all that. And I gotta say that was one of the most confusing experiences for me, because at the time I also thought gamers would know about computers, and the most basic things they didn't understand. I had to explain them, and then funny thing was they were from another country, so they didn't speak my language. Now how to talk to them, and I mixed my language because they understood a bit, their language because I knew a bit, and I finally told them how to do it. One example, how much of the FPS they should get. They all wanted as much FPS as they could get, but we couldn't basically have it unlimited because they were our computers. So we kept them at 10% more than the screen refresh rate was. So a normal thing to do, and to explain it to them. Now that was a fun thing to do.
Yeah. Sounds fun. Anthony, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of when I think about a younger person, maybe a kid or whatnot, or even most people, when they think in terms of using a computer, they just want to play their game. They don't care about the computer. They don't care about the OS. If they can't play their game, it doesn't matter. And so the way to approach it is I say you have Linux on your own machines. Hey, this is what I'm able to do. It may be something as simple as showing them like what we did back in the day on GNOME 2 when you had that spinning cube or the fire effects and all that. If it's something cool that you can do better on your machine than maybe what other people are doing on theirs, I mean, I'm more along the lines of showing uh, what you have versus imposing on what someone else has, and just kind of go from there. Like I'm about to install an operating system on my sister's computer. I want to put Solus on there, but she's not a person that's on Linux normally. And so if I do what I want to do, that's not necessarily what she wants me to do. And so that's got to be something that we keep in mind, and it just can't be forgotten that people are just different. It's just different people that are involved in Linux versus people that may just be on Mac OS or Windows. It's a different thing altogether.
Yep. Abdullah?
Okay. Okay. So, well, talking about kids. I mean, my sister-in-law, she has 14. I mean, maybe at the same age as computer kids. And as I have told her before, she's a game. I mean, not a very fancy gamer, but she play from time to time games like Minecraft and Roblox. As I have said before, Roblox doesn't work in Linux. I mean, even if you use Wine, you will be banned from the server.
Yep.
So this is an issue. So I mean, before she got into Roblox, I mean, she liked Linux. But then when we did find out that she could not play in Roblox, I thought to solve that through Grapefruit. I mean, I thought it will make her also play on the server, but it seems that she will use only the studio. So she will not be able to play on the server. So this is an issue. Also.
The tragic thing about Roblox is, one, it doesn't work on Linux. Two, it is so popular. Three, it is so bad. It is such a waste of time.
I mean, it's such a waste of time for me and for you. That is sure. But for her, it's an enjoyment. I mean,
Yep.
I know. I was into it for years, but eventually, every game on there is just a time sink where the idea is the longer you wait or the longer you play, the more like points you accumulate. And
But Daniel, that's every game.
I mean,
Yeah.
anybody will like his
Gotta
game.
keep that attention.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who likes the game. I mean, I like Counter-Strike. I mean, not so much. I mean, not now, but I used to like it. But I would not say I was a good player. But for her, Roblox is very important. I mean, she spent most of her time with her friends on the school in Roblox. I mean, they make even conversation about what they should do, and like it's like the second version of Facebook. So.
But Abdullah, for her, then Linux is not right for her. It's not the best thing for her. So that's a person that I would not try to convince or to do anything to say, hey, you should run Linux, or, you know, let's try to get this working. It's not the best option for her.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm just, I'm not forcing her. I mean, maybe I try to convert her, but if she don't want to be converted to Linux, fine. I mean, she's not a bad person, but it doesn't fit, as you said, it doesn't fit her needs. Maybe it will work in the future. I don't know, but for the moment, I think, yeah, as you have said, Linux will not serve her. But you have always to look at the needs of the people. When something will fulfill the needs of the people, they will go for it. I mean, that's what I mean. That's what I learned from my experience with my wife. I mean, when I tried to convert her to Linux, I mean, I wasn't into that's behavior of converted people, so I will look cool, but that was a big mistake for me. I mean, I learned from this lesson the hard way. So
yep. So you learn from it, you move on, brother.
Yep.
All right, SC, welcome to Biddle.
Thank you very much. This is my first time being on here, and I'm a little nervous, so I apologize for that.
Don't worry about that.
Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome.
If I would like to make a suggestion or a comment on converting people over to Linux and how it's not always the best option for people, and that is, so I'm a sysadmin volunteer for a nonprofit, and they are purely a Windows environment. They always have been. The people there, like, they know Microsoft Office, and that's it. Like, I'm trying to get them to use something even remotely different is so hard, and because they're so used to how things work a certain way, and whenever people say, well, just convert everyone to Linux and it'll be just okay, and it's like, well, no, it's not. Because some people are stuck in their ways, and like they can't it's just so almost impossible for them. Like switching, like these people are like, they're like, is this a monitor, and is this a mouse, and like the concept of changing the workflow is so hard that I would never suggest these people to change their complete workflow just because, oh, well, it's Linux and it's better.
Well, see, that's the thing. It is Linux, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's better because it may not be better for them and their scenario. So, you have to decide when you're talking to people if this is going to be better for them or not. You don't want, like Abdullah, you don't want to, force somebody to use Linux. You just don't. You want it to be a choice and something they want to do, not something they're forced to do.
And they're more likely to embrace it if it's something they want to do than something that's forced upon them. It's the way we are as people. Is if it's something that we're interested in, yes, we're going to go at it full force and do everything we can to learn about it and things of that nature. But if it's something that that doesn't pique our interest, we tend to avoid it and ignore it and move on.
But talk about the workflow. I mean, sometimes you could you just have to know the workflow of the people and modify the distro in a way that it will fit the workflow. I mean, it works in my case with the grandmother. So, but it won't work everywhere. So this is true. I have to admit.
Yeah, everything is going to be a case by case, type thing. It's going to be based off of what programs they use. Like going to LibreOffice from Microsoft Office to LibreOffice. When you do that, you import a document from Office and MS Office to LibreOffice. The formatting is going to maybe different based off the macros that are used, based off of the fonts that are used, but whatever the case may be, that the differences between the two Office suites. So even if you were able to get them to Linux, it might not meet their needs initially, because of the differences between the way the software work, the different programs that they use work. So that sometimes it's, like me, for example, I just use every operating system, that's out there and have a system for each one. That's not an option for everybody, but I use everything because when I'm working in IT, I fix Macs, I fix Windows machines. I've actually been asked Linux questions when I was working for BOFA when I got the enterprise calls that I wasn't supposed to get. And they were asking me questions about the Linux server and stuff, but I had to pass that on because I'm not allowed to touch those even if I did know the answer.
Dave, go ahead.
Two things. One, SC, if you ever really want to be a masochist, if the big holdup is Office and they're used to using Office, I did a ton of work in Word and just have hundreds of documents in Word. And I discovered SoftMaker Office actually can open Word documents and save in the docx format. It's pretty much, at least that one part of the suite is pretty much a one-to-one translation with MS Office. And they have both a Windows version if you want to try it out on that, but also in Linux, it works fine. That's what I use when I'm running, all the times I run Linux, to use all my documents that I both created in Windows and that I want to be able to open in Windows when I go back. And the second thing is, why do I get the feeling that using a desktop computer is kind of like driving a manual transmission vehicle or writing in cursive, that in 25 years,
cursive.
those of us who can still do these things are going to be viewed as these really weird mystics who, just kind of live apart from real society?
Yep. Well, Dave, you mentioned to SC about Word, but SC, you mentioned something in chat a little bit earlier talking about an alternative to Active Directory. And I think that is something that I've heard from other people, from Adam Grubbs as well, that there is no good alternative right now for that. And that's one of the reasons why, sysadmins and, companies don't want to switch to Linux. Go ahead, SC.
There we go. I had to mute myself. Apologize. So about the alternatives to Active Directory, the only thing that I can really think of is something called free IPA, which there's like, it's a full Kerberos type encrypted suite for Unix type systems, but like there's a way to tie that into like a Samba server But like trying to get Windows or really anything that, like, if a company that the one I'm volunteering for is solely Active Directory, there's no gray area to really transition a company over into something that is either open source or even Linux based, especially on the enterprise. And you can even forget about trying to manage these systems in a way that Active Directory or even group policy management on Windows really does. And I don't see any alternative to that on the Linux. And I've asked numerous people, they're like, well, I don't know. And I don't think there really will be. Because anyway, that's all I really got. So,
Dan, what do you say to that?
I think you're spot on. There really is no one-for-one alternative. You can get close. You can do some things to do some automation so that you have some control there, but it's just not the same. And I guess you could probably compromise and go a different route if you didn't mind taking the extra effort and putting the extra work into it. But yeah, and when you get it doesn't scale well. When you get a really large organization, really big enterprise, you can't really call it the same.
Yep.
Could I add something?
Yeah.
It's about the university. I mean, my university where I did study, I mean, it did convert most of its, in a department of mathematics into Linux. And a lot of people did complain about it. I mean, they said that Windows costs them money and they have to make economy. But a lot of people said, no, we are used to Linux, to Windows. Why you do that? So yeah, I could understand that in the structure it's quite hard to change that. I mean, even in university, which is known to have this open. Anyway.
Colin?
Yes, so I think Rocco, you of all people would probably know the reason why I'm here in this chat, and that was to talk about Linux. That was one of the main reasons I came here, because I found myself, the stare and people didn't know what I was talking about and all that sort of stuff. And it was all about my passion for Linux used to sort of drive me to, talk about it. And I wanted everybody on Linux because that's how passionate I was about it. But, I've come over the years to find that that's not the best way to go about it. Normally today, you might hear people in a conversation talking about how Windows is frustrating them and whatever. So I'll open that door of opportunity to say, there is an alternative, but I don't try to push people to Linux now because they really need to want to come to Linux. And that's the whole point of it, I suppose. And if they have an issue with Windows itself, then, you can bring that conversation up. But that's the reason why I'm here. I did also a couple of years ago made a video moving, migrating and switching people from Windows to Linux. And that video was all about the applications that are across the board between a lot of them are used in Windows, Linux and Mac. I think there's a few missing from Mac, but it was just to provide some information to people of the applications they can use on their Mac, on their Windows, that if they start using those and they did want to make an alternative choice to Linux, they're already there. So, so that was the reason I made that video. I was inspired by a guy named Swapnil Bhatia. Do you know him?
Yep.
Yeah. So he made a video about that, and it inspired me to make a video and give all these choices to the different cross-platform applications available. And, I don't know if it's helped anybody or not, but yeah, it's just inspiration. But I think your passion can get in the way to want to force people on there, but they've got to want to come over to the other side, don't they, really, at the end of the day?
They gotta want to, dude. Just like in the same way, Colin, that, you came on here, like when we first started, you wanted to come on here. and you wanted to talk about
Yes.
Linux. And in the same way, that person that you're talking to has to want that.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, I just couldn't talk to anybody. That's why I came on here, because nobody really wants to hear it, you know.
Yep.
Not the people I know anyway. So.
Well, Jesper, he's in the chat. He's talking a couple times now with me tonight on the chat that, you know, there's nobody in Denmark that runs Linux. And, you know, this is a good spot for him to be. You know, you're welcome, Jesper, to come on Zoom and talk with us about it. Because even if you don't have anybody around you, you can still have people to talk about Linux. So
there is one person in Denmark that runs Linux, the Real Geek. Look him up on YouTube.
There you go. See,
he's in Denmark. Yep, the Real Geek. Look him up. He's in Denmark. So
there you go, Jesper.
He runs Linux, but he does a lot of chat. He does a lot of thought-provoking stuff. So yeah, and he does some Linux videos as well.
I know the feeling about not having people around you that run Linux. The only two people near me who run Linux are the dude who runs the website for Jogger OS, my friend Logan. I need to get him on here one day. That'd be fun. And Amalith, who used to be on here all the time, but isn't anymore.
Right. Amethyst was awesome. He should be back on here.
He should, but if I'm not mistaken, he is actually working with a Linux user group at his college. He actually became the president of the Linux user group there, and they had a dude from Canonical come talk there. I don't know. He's gone off on his own little world. I have no idea anymore.
That reminds me, I've heard this year of a new freshman who is a Linux user at my school, but tragically I cannot go seek him out because of COVID.
Well,
I have our own lug of two.
Tragic.
I met Amalith down at Self, and like I said, he was awesome. So I wish he would come back around.
Computer Kid, convert us to Arch.
It's awesome. You should use it. There you go. I'm done. One thing that this discussion has kind of made me think about is we're kind of lacking in Linux as desktop Linux is kind of lacking in a few different areas of applications. Like we don't have Word, and we don't have whatever the Microsoft email thingy is. We don't have all those fancy apps that everybody uses. One area that we do we hold an equal place in the market is browsers. Like we've got Chrome, we've got Firefox, we've got Vivaldi and Brave and all of them. We don't have Edgium, but that's because it's from Microsoft and they can't give it to us. But that's just that's just a thing I've thought about as we've been having this discussion, is that we're in an equal spot in the browser market.
Edge is just Chromium rebranded now anyway, so.
Yeah. It's just got it's Chromium with a theme.
And Edge is coming to Linux sooner or later. They already have working builds, just they are not ready yet for general usage on Linux.
So it's used about as much as the calculator, so maybe they'll open source it.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, well, I think maybe the best way to convince people to use Linux is to show them a computer with Linux. I mean, it's very easy to talk about Linux, but it's very different when you see it with your own eyes how it works. I mean, that I used this way with the grandmother. It did work perfectly with her. So maybe we just take the laptop and play on it and wow, what is that? And then he get interested. I mean, talking about it, will say people maybe he's talking too much. But when you show them, there will be two reactions. Either he will not care, or he will say, this is interesting. This looks very different. I mean, I get a lot of reaction when they saw my laptop and with Ubuntu on it. A lot of people say, "What is that? It looks weird." I mean, this kind of reaction makes people. People are curious when they see something visual, but when you talk about it, they could not imagine how it looks like. Maybe something scary, maybe something for hackers, or something illegal.
So I found that I have the perfect laptop to show people Linux on.
It's a Chromebook.
Company. No, not this case. It's not a Chromebook, Shickle. I know you want to shield for them, but this is actually a 76 laptop with Pop OS. You know, it's a product that they can go and buy, and it already has Linux exactly as it is on this computer that I have installed it on.
Yep.
Well, I think a ThinkPad is enough to do the job. I mean, any ThinkPad will do the job perfectly. I mean, it looks slim and smart, and it's did the job.
No,
I
but
mean,
it's nice to have a
that's my
product.
view.
But it's nice to have a product like, you know, a company like System 76 sell laptops with Linux on it. So, you know, if they have a problem, instead of calling me, they can call Emma. You know.
Hey, Dan.
She'll help you be happy.
Yeah.
Dan, who knew that we could go 2 hours with that conversation?
I thought Gnome Tweaks was impressive.
I'm just gonna, you know, say, hey, you know, maybe I didn't tell you so.
No, that was.
We could probably go another couple hours.
We
on this
probably
conversation.
could, but we're running out of time. I did want to get to two things really quick. One, we did get another email, right, Dan?
Oh no, you're not going there.
Yeah, we're going there. And this one's from Stacy, and she asks, has anyone ever told Dan Simmons he looks like the 80s version of Elton John? And I would love to know if he could sing.
I want to know too. Let's see.
You really don't want me to sing, no?
I love it. And the last thing I have, because I told somebody I would talk about it, Pledstow. Has anybody ever heard of Pledstow?
Is that like a snowmobile?
No, it's actually a alternative that's I guess a newer alternative to Patreon or Ko-fi, and I'm just kind of wondering, you know, at first I got this email and I thought it was like a scam, you know, one of them scam emails, but it is actually a legitimate service, and I was just trying to gauge, you know, has anybody ever heard of this? Basically, the gist of it is it's a service that allows you to donate to creators without having to sign up for an account. All you need is an email.
Interesting.
I now that you mentioned it, I did. There was a video I just watched this past week from somebody who mentioned that as another alternative for them. It's the first time I ever heard of it. And I didn't remember it until you said that.
Yep. Well,
Confuses me a little why we. Okay, that one seems to have a bit of a use case, but it confuses me why we need so many platforms. Like we've got Patreon and sponsors and Ko-fi and whatever that was, and buymeacoffee.com and all of these.
This coming from a Linux user that has so many distros.
As Bram Moulinar once said, if you get 5 of the most talented open source software developers together in one room to add a function to a spreadsheet program, in a week you will have 3 new text editors and 2 mail readers.
I'm sure you will.
But anyway, you know, we don't have to talk about it right now because we are running out of time. But if you would let me know your feedback on what you think about something like that, is that of an interest to people to be able to?
How do you spell it?
Pledsto, pledsto.com. So, like I said, check it out, and maybe next week or even through the contact form, just send me a message and tell me what you think of it, and we'll go from there. We are out of time for this week. This has been a great discussion. We didn't even get to our must-have app list. We were supposed to finish it off. Like, we finished the apps, but there were a few honorable mentions that we were going to bring up, and I had a few ideas I was going to run past you guys for future conversations, but we took all that time talking about the other stuff, so it was great.
I'm glad.
Everybody gets the last word, Dan, so do it.
Well, thanks, Rocco. And we say it every week, but you do a lot for the community, and I appreciate all the time you put into everything you do. So thank you.
Dig it. Big Pod, last word.
Well, I'm gonna say for the topic before that when my classmates saw my laptop with Linux, well, first they asked, "What is that?" I said Linux. Second reaction from them was, "Why the hell are you using that? Just use Windows." And that was the end of the conversation. So, and those were IT students. So, yeah.
Yep. Dave Jones, last word.
Thanks, Rocco, for putting on a great show, and thanks to all the co-hosts who help you out. It makes my Saturday evenings. I look forward to them and makes them great. And I can't wait till next week for Biddle Europe version.
Yep. Tony, last word.
Yeah, great conversation. Interesting. I had absolutely no trouble keeping awake, even though I was a bit tired. But I was going to mention Biddle Europe next week, but Dave's beat me to it. So other than that, I look forward to the double show next week. So take care all till then, and I'll see you next week.
I don't mind having 2 reminders, Tony. It's good.
Okay.
Jason, last word. If you can make it through the cats.
Yeah, well, she's very, very lovey right now. But I just want to say thank you for everybody that Rocco and group to putting this on. It's just great to come in here and to have great conversations about anything technology wise, whether it be Linux and the community or whatever it may be. It's just great to be able to have a place to communicate our passions together. You guys have yourselves a great evening.
Sam, last word.
Yeah. For me, it's my second coming here, and it's a really speaking to all of you guys feels home to me, because I know even in my family when I speak about installing Linux and moving from away from Windows, they're like, it's for these scientists sort of people. It's not for commoners. Now then, when I install them and show them that these are the benefits, they're like, okay. One of my cousins was like, oh, you can run Linux in a live mode. If something crashes, then you can take out the data without anything. Okay, that's the problem. I was like, oh, we never knew this. So, coming here and talking to you guys, I can, know certain things that I didn't know, and I can tell them so they can tell the others. I think it's a good way.
Aris, last word.
Thank you very much, Rocco, and everybody who makes the show possible. I gotta admit, I was a little shocked that shots were fired at Pac-Man and nobody said anything.
That's because I wasn't here yet.
Oh.
You should have stood up, Aris, and defended
You're
it.
late, computer kid.
I think I already beat you at this argument, though.
I love Pac-Man.
I don't run Arch, but I think somebody should have stood up.
Pac-Man is great.
Don't worry, you can install Pac-Man on other distros. It's okay.
Oh my
Sudo
gosh.
apt install Pac-Man.
Jinda,
Well,
last word.
Pac-Man is not in Twitter, to be honest.
You'd be fine on an RPM distro.
All right. Jinda, last word.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me. And I hope to see you all next week.
Thomas.
Hi. You caught me by surprise. Well,
At least you didn't knock your earbuds out.
this time. Thanks for having Biddle again this week. It was a lot of fun, especially after the amount of stress I've had the past 2 days, finishing up the stable release for DarkOS 7.5.1, which is now available. Heck yeah. And yeah, see you next week.
Steven, last word.
Thanks, Rocco, and thanks, guys. It's been fun. I do agree that somebody should have stood up for Pac-Man. It is the best package manager ever, and I'm sticking to that. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
I agree. Somebody should have stuck up for Pac-Man, just not me. DJ, go ahead.
As always, thank you, Rocco, for a great discussion tonight. I wanted to just take 30 seconds, if you don't mind.
Do it.
Attended the conference for RISC-V, which, if you're not familiar with that, that is an open source processor spec that has matured enough where the Linux community is literally swarming around the thing. There are projects in work from everything from IoT devices to supercomputers, and I think next year we'll probably see our first Our first computer is based on it. NVIDIA, by the way, has already been implementing it in every graphics card they make. It's not the central processor, but it is one of the IO processors. Hope you all have a great week.
Very nice. Colin, last word.
Thanks, Rock and Co, for the platform. I'm still getting used to this sound off, sound on thing, aren't I?
Colin, how long you been here?
A week or
Great
two.
discussion tonight. Really enjoyed it. I only have one thing to say. I just see Dan as the Rocket Man.
I love it. Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco, for the space. Thank you, Dan and Chickle, for the support and all the people who are behind the scenes that make this place happen. And I apologize, though I do run Arch, for not standing up for Pac-Man. I just have it so buried deep in aliases that it didn't even occur to me that that's actually the underlying package manager that I use. So I apologize. I should have. And I hope to see you all next week.
Daniel Stevenson.
So as far as Pac-Man goes, it is great for speed. I'll give you that. It's just that you have to do a lot of the thinking for it. Let's put it that way. Also, breaking, but that's another argument. Great being on here this week, and I hope to see you all again soon.
Schickle.
Well, Swift in chat reminded me of Antragos, so I would just like to say that from Beyond the Grave, R.I.P. Antragos, I miss you. You were fantastic. R.I.P.
Abdallah?
I want to thank everybody who take into the conversation, and Rocco for making this, and also Chico for having me here. What I could say at the end, I mean, if you want to convert somebody into Linux, I mean, you have first of all know his needs, and if you don't know his needs, don't even bother to try it. That's it. Thank you.
Joe, last word.
Well, first of all, Dave, no apology necessary because it didn't bother me in the least. But anyway, so no, I've been a little preoccupied, but I was glad to be able to just sit in and listen to everybody tonight from this point of view. And I think when it comes down to Linux as a whole, you just got to let people decide for themselves. It's a mindset, and that's all. I mean, people are going to do what they want to do when they're ready for it, and that's it. But anyway, the other thing is everybody stay safe. Stay healthy, be kind to one another. Thanks again.
Anthony.
Thank you, everybody, for such an interesting conversation. I found it very enjoyable, and I'm glad I was able to make it.
Awesome. Tyler, last word.
I just, wanted, as far as recommending a distro to people, something, again, Gentoo based, Schickle's favorite. It's all about that Chrome OS, but anyway, it's fun hanging out, fun talking. Drink good coffee. See you next week.
Cheers. SC, last word.
Yes, I just want to say DNF is superior. And thanks for the show. I appreciate it.
All right.
No.
Computer Kid, last word.
Thanks, guys, for letting me in here and the great conversation about the one topic I was around for. And long live Arch Linux.
Wow. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you, Dan and Schickle, for helping me out tonight. Appreciate it. And I want to thank Eric Adams, too, who is not always around anymore, but still does a lot on the back end that nobody sees. So appreciate that. We do have Biddle Europe next week. That is at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to join us for that, be another great conversation. We'll still have our regular show at 8. We have, Dan, Linux User Space coming out.
Yeah, we do. Monday.
And one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about was following along maybe a conversation of some of the topics that we get to talk about on Linux User Space, and maybe bringing that conversation over here to get your guys' thoughts on it, I think that would be an awesome thing. But until then, next week we will see you then. But until then, long live Linux.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.